Hello YouTube world, my name is Nicholas Montez, and you're watching my YouTube channel, The Teenage Movie Critic. And today we're going to be doing something fun. First off, happy 4th of July. You're going to get a 4th of July video in a little bit, but in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and stop and talk about the latest MCU series and the final show and final project of Phase 5 of the MCU, Ironheart. So this is one that's been kind of on the table for the last few years now. To where, we were introduced to the character Riri Williams, Ironheart, in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And then basically we were announced that, she was going to get a show. And it's been, getting delayed all this whole time. And to be honest, to give you my thoughts on it before we talk about it, I was not really interested in it. At first, I was like, okay, this seems kind of cool. It's doing tech versus magic. What's the differences between it? And maybe it can explore something interesting with that. Maybe get some cool Iron Man action. And, Anthony Ramos is in here, and I think he'd probably do pretty good. And I don't know exactly how much of an impact it'll make on the Iron Man franchise, but it could probably do something cool. And so I didn't really know what to expect from it. And then also, the marketing was just kind of terrible, to where they released a trailer for it a month before the show ever came out, and we're just now getting clips on it. To where I'm like, well, that's a kind of a little sad, because I'm like, how could they just not market this? And so then I kind of watched the show, and I was like, okay, let's see what this is about. And honestly, this I know that this show has not gotten the best of reviews. Some people say it's awful for whatever reason of being a racist, and the saying that the show is woke. First off, let me just kind of actually, hold up. Oh, never mind. I was looking for something, sorry. Let me just kind of discuss that whole racist and woke thing in the room here. First off, we have had women superheroes. We have had superheroes of different races. If you go back to, say, when the Black Panther movies came out, everybody loved it. Most people loved it. Some people were kind of haters for whatever reason, because they just didn't handle the way the story was done or whatever. But the movie was great. Then you had Captain Marvel, which a lot of people didn't like, but I was a fan of it. But then you also had another racial movie with Shang-Chi, where it's an Asian hero. And that was beloved by a lot of people, though I know there's actually some people that don't like it as much. And then you also had characters like Miss Marvel, She-Hulk. I don't know if Moon Knight counts because he's Jewish, but I don't really know if it counts. But yeah, so we've had all this diversity in the MCU, but people just decide to keep clowning this one as woke, and if you don't like it, you're racist. And it's me personally, the reason why I wasn't interested in the show, not because I was racist or not because she was a woke, because it's a woke project. None of these projects are woke, but because they didn't market the show enough, and they didn't make me feel excited for the show. And to now discuss it, since I have teased that I liked it, I really did love this show. Now, and it's kind of crazy to say, but I think that this might be one of the best MCU shows we've gotten, possibly since Hawkeye. To where I feel throughout the entire show, I'm just enjoying all of this. I'm enjoying this kind of story. And you're kind of learning about Riri Williams, and, essentially, she's known to be this very smart person who can build all these things. She literally built a vibranium metal detector that can detect vibranium. And because of this, she gets, like, expelled. Or actually, no, she gets expelled for making an Iron Man suit. That's why. Um, Hold up. I'm trying to pull up the Iron Man show on here. Okay, the Ironheart show, sorry. Um, and basically, she, like, gets expelled, and she gets expelled for building an Iron Man suit. And the show kind of dives into a little bit as to why she does that. Why, of all the things to make, she kind of puts it out there that, like, because she could. And the reason for this is because, first off, she has this story. And honestly, I think what's so impressive about this story is, once again, Ryan Coogler is the executive producer of it. So obviously, a lot of the writing chops in here work really well because of him. But also, I personally feel like that this show truly does a different type of MCU story. And I wasn't really paying attention to this when I was going into this show. That basically this story is about the tragedy of Riri Williams, to where she's a very flawed character. She has everything that drives her is essentially her trauma from her stepdad and her best friend getting killed by a shootout, by a drive-by. And then, she accidentally creates an AI that resembles her best friend. And throughout the series, she's kind of like wanting to delete her because that's not exactly how that's supposed to be. And even then, what makes the series even more interesting is that she's somewhat of a manipulator, to where it's like she's not being honest with people, and like, even when she tries to, like, go to see magic to see what Hood's cape is, it's like she kind of manipulates these people and all that stuff, and I'm like, that's just insane. And then she does the same thing again with her friend Gary, and I'm like, wow, like, this woman cannot be trusted. She has so many issues, even with, like, you can also tell, like, she probably cannot do with a guy right now, but it's just all of that makes for an interesting thing, to where when you get to the end of the show and she finally is able to steal the hood from Parker, and you realize she decided to do a deal with the devil, made a deal with the devil. And I'm like, that stuff like that is just is what makes this show a little bit insane. And it's a good aspect. It's a very interesting story to do with a character like Ironheart. And I thought it was very interesting. And I thought, like, I love that they actually made a show that was the tragedy of a character. That it wasn't, she's flawed, but we're gonna make up for it, and we're gonna do things back. But no, instead, we're gonna make this show will be a tragedy. And I thought that was, like, a very experimental thing to do in the MCU. And for me, I thought it really worked. And as for, like, the other aspects of this show, we're going into a different world. We're going into Chicago. We've been to New York, we've been to Wakanda, we've been to all these different places. We've never been to Chicago. And I thought the way we were able to explore Chicago a little bit was really interesting. We kind of got to see the type of world and what characters live there. There's, like, this little kid that has, like, this wagon that Riri works with. You get to learn about Riri's family and stuff. And the other interesting aspect about this show that I think does really cool, that I kind of wish they explored a little bit more on, is how has these famous inventors in the MCU, like Tony Stark, Hank Pym, and all these other people, how does it, like, impact, like, engineers and people of that sorts? And I thought it was really interesting to see that, to where you basically have, like, it all makes sense into how it fits into the Iron Man stuff. And it's also really cool that like Riri and her dad were engineers. They worked on cars. So now Riri's suit is made out of car parts, as in the car we saw in Wakanda Forever. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's really cool. Another thing and also that I will say, it doesn't do so much with Riri's character. However, I do like the way they do it with Parker and his crew, which in my opinion, they're also pretty great villains in that they're this crew that they're not exactly based on tech, but they have very impressive skills. You know, Riri is known to be this character who has all these smarts, but because she made something very inventive, she got expelled for it. And she wants all this stuff. She wants all of this. She wants to be respected, and she's not really getting the respect that she deserves. But then you get Hood, and these people, they try to get money, and that's another thing. Riri, no matter to get all into this mess, she decides to go into crime. She does this, she does that. She made a deal with the devil. She does all this. Parker, his crew, they're trying to steal money, and they have all these impressive skills, while Hood, he's trying to do this with magic, but dark magic at the same time. And it's really interesting in the way they honestly kind of did this. And Anthony Ramos did pretty good as the character, and exploring him was really interesting. Some of the other characters were actually pretty fun and cool. And honestly, like, I got the gist of them. Like, I honestly enjoyed seeing them. They're not, like, great characters, but they're fine for the show. And then I guess the last thing to talk about here is all the suit-ups of Iron Man and the Ironheart suit. They're pretty great. It did feel kind of nice to not have always nanotech around. It just felt nice to just kind of have a good Iron Man suit up sometimes. And something else I wasn't going into this show, which I kind of expected, but I wanted more of. The action was pretty good, but the thing is, I was expecting a lot more Iron Man action. Like, you know, missiles and lasers and all that stuff. We didn't get much of that. It was more of like blasting and flying and suit-ups. Most of the action came from our little villain characters. So, not that I hated it, but it would have been cool with the action, I won't lie. And once Riri got into the action, it was actually quite cool. Though I wish we could have gotten a little bit more. I don't know if it'll set up a season 2, but yeah, that's my kind of it. And I guess that's pretty much up for the good. Let's move on to the bad. And I guess my big problem with this show overall, it really did not need to be 6 episodes. I thought we were done with this. And yeah, when it comes between the tech and when it comes with the tech stuff and the magic stuff, it does feel like it's a little tacked on, like it was very last minute. It probably could have done better with that, but honestly, this was like one of my favorite projects of Phase 5. If I'm being honest, since Daredevil Born Again, I've honestly been just loving every single thing that Phase 5 has been giving us. With Daredevil Born Again and Thunderbolts and now Ironheart, we got 3 great MCU projects the last few times, and that gives me hope for what I'm hoping we get with Fantastic Four First Steps that comes out in 3 weeks. So I'm very excited for it. But that's kind of my overall thoughts on Ironheart. Now, this show, of course, it's an MCU show, so we got to talk about the future and stuff. So this show is essentially, now that this show finally introduced Mephisto, which is a character that's been long running in the making. We first thought he was going to show up in WandaVision, then we thought he was going to show up in maybe No Way Home, and him pulling the strings and bringing, why Doctor Strange is acting so weird. Why are all these villains back? We thought maybe he'll be in Loki and he's behind all that. No, we finally got him introduced, and it's in the unexpected of shows in Ironheart. And yeah, I thought he was great, and I'm excited to see how he'll probably be able to do all this stuff with all these different characters. And essentially, because now they introduced Ironheart having magic and also Mephisto, there's a lot of things that this show might do to where it could probably set up either one, Strange Academy, where basically Doctor Strange makes a crew of sorcerers or magicians or wizards to go stop Mephisto, or even better, we get the Midnight Suns, where it basically includes all the supernatural characters such as Blade, Man-Thing, and Moon Knight, and all these other characters, Werewolf by Night, and all these characters to go stop the devil, to go stop Mephisto. If they're planning to do both, well, either or, I am excited for them. Me personally, if you want to start the supernatural stuff right, you probably should do Blade and then do Moon Knight Season 2 if you can get the story right. And yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on the future of the MCU. And then as for the next MCU show, which is actually going to be the first show of Phase 5, we got 2 shows because technically the next show is going to be animated. The next few shows are going to be animated. First 2, we got Eyes of Wakanda, which is another Ryan Coogler produced series, and Marvel Zombies. So, and then for the live action side, we got Wonder Man. So we'll talk about the animated series first. Eyes of Wakanda, I'm actually very excited for that series. I think Ryan Coogler, this has been his year, with Sinners, and then Ironheart, now Eyes of Wakanda. This series is probably going to be great. The only thing I'm nervous for is that it's only going to be 4 episodes. And I really, unless if each episode is just going to be 4 different adventures throughout time, it better be worth it. But if anything, this series probably should have more episodes. But, the animation looks pretty cool. There's these hand-drawn shots that look really interesting. And this probably could be the next step of Marvel Studios trying to do hand-drawn animation and do something interesting with it. I think it would be really cool. And then you get Marvel Zombies, which I'm also very excited for because I really liked the Zombies episode in What If. And I thought that was excellent. And so I'm super excited for whatever they decide to cook up with that. But once again, it's only 4 episodes. And, I guess it can't last that long. Unless it has a different runtime and it's only 35 minutes. I don't know if I'll be interested. But I am still pretty excited though. But after seeing What If Season 3, I can't really say I'm excited for a lot of that What If content. And then finally we have Wonder Man, which my thoughts are still a little bit mixed on it, but every time we get a new detail on the show and who's writing it, what's the story behind it, what's this, what's that, there's little details that just make me a little bit more excited. And that it's like what? This guy that played Black Manta and Aquaman, he's coming in, playing this character called Simon Williams. He's Simon Williams, and he's playing this character called Wonder Man, or something like that. I don't know. I really don't know what this show's about. And then it's bringing back Ben Kingsley character from Iron Man 3 and Shang-Chi. I have no idea what this show's about. But it has me intrigued. It's giving off these WandaVision vibes that I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. So I think that's overall my thoughts on the future of the MCU. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.